There's a kind of peace you can only find in a place that holds your entire history. For me, that place is the homestead. It's not just a house. It's a 20-acre island of character surrounded by a vast, rolling sea of beige vinyl siding and meticulously manicured chemically green lawns. My great-grandfather built the main house with his own hands. My grandfather built the large workshop out back, the one where I now run my high-end woodworking business. The scent of cedar, pine, and varnish isn't just the smell of my job. It's the smell of my childhood, my heritage. 20 years ago, my grandfather, in a move of generosity and perhaps a bit of short-sightedness, sold off the surrounding 300 acres of our family land to a developer. He was getting old, the land was too much to manage, and the developer made him a promise. They would build a respectful, high-end community, and they would honor the homestead's place in the center of it. They even named the community Mitchell's Run, as if that were some grand concession. Part of that deal, a handshake that was later formalized into a dense, forgotten contract, involved the water. You see, the best water in the county wasn't municipal. It was right here in the deep rock aquifer beneath my property. My grandfather had a sophisticated well system, and he agreed to provide all the water for the new Mitchell's Run HOA, all 200 homes, their community pool, and their golf course-worthy lawns, for a flat, laughably low good neighbor fee of $1,000 a month. It was, for him, a way to ensure the new neighbors started off on the right foot. For 20 years, that contract sat in a file cabinet, and the water and the peace just flowed. I inherited the property 5 years ago. I kept the arrangement, kept my head down, and focused on my craft. My clients were from all over the country, seeking custom furniture that was more art than utility. My workshop was my sanctuary. The sounds of a planer or a lathe were, to me, like birdsong. To the new HOA board president, they were, apparently, the sounds of war. Her name was Brenda. She had moved in about a year prior, driving a white, king-sized SUV that seemed to have a permanent disapproving sneer, much like its owner. Brenda was from the city, and she brought with her a pathological obsession with uniformity and property values. She was elected president of the HOA on a fanatical platform of restoring order and enforcing the covenants, which, as far as I could tell, meant making sure everyone's mailbox was the exact same shade of HOA-approved taupe. I wasn't even in the HOA. My 20-acre property was a private enclave, a donut hole in their jurisdiction. This fact seemed to eat at Brenda like a termite. It started subtly, a laminated note tucked under my truck's windshield wiper. Per Section 4.7 of the Mitchell's Run Covenants, commercial vehicles are not permitted to be parked in driveways overnight. Your truck, license plate XXXXXXX, is in violation. I ignored it. My truck was my personal vehicle, and my driveway was my private property. A week later, another note, this time taped to my front door. Re-lawn maintenance. Your grass appears to exceed the 3-inch maximum height regulation. Please remedy this immediately to avoid penalties. I looked at my lawn. It was healthy, green, and maybe 3.5 inches in some spots. I looked over at her lawn, which looked like a sterile, green-painted carpet. I threw the note away. This, I learned, was a grave mistake. To a person like Brenda, ignoring her is worse than disagreeing. It's a declaration that she doesn't exist, and her power, which she had constructed around herself like a fortress, was just an illusion. She stopped by in person the following Tuesday. I heard the electric whine of a golf cart and saw her pull up to the edge of my workshop. I was in the middle of routing a complex inlay on a walnut desktop wearing my respirator and ear protection. I didn't hear her at first. When I finally looked up, she was standing 20 feet away, arms crossed, tapping her foot with a rhythm that could have cracked the foundation. I killed the router, pulled off my gear, and stepped out into the sunlight. "Can I help you?" I asked, wiping sawdust from my arms. "That's just it," she said, her voice a high-pitched drill. "You can help. You can stop. Stop what?" "This noise." She waved a hand at my open workshop doors. "And the smell. It's industrial. This is a residential community, Mr. Mitchell." "This is my business, ma'am," I said, trying to keep my voice even. "I'm a woodworker." And this property has been a workshop for longer than Mitchell's Run has existed. That, she said, taking a small, triumphant step forward, is where you are wrong. I've read the covenants. This is all residential. Your little hobby is a commercial enterprise, and it is strictly forbidden. Brenda, right? Listen, I appreciate your concern, but my property is not part of your HOA. Your covenants don't apply here. This is private land. Her eyes narrowed into tiny slits. We'll see about that. She spun on her heel and zoomed off in her golf cart, leaving a small puff of indignant dust in her wake. It's the kind of quiet that feels permanent, until it isn't. And that's when she arrived. Brenda. Let me tell you, this story gets wild and I want to know what you would have done in my shoes. While you're thinking, drop a comment down below and let me know where you're watching from. Trust me, you'll want to stick around for this absolute roller coaster of suburban warfare. I tried to put the encounter out of my mind. It was just a power-tripping busybody. What could she really do? I had my business permits. I was zoned correctly with the county. I was grandfathered in a dozen different ways. I went back to my walnut desktop, the sweet, sharp smell of the wood filling the air, and I tried to find that peace again. A few days later, I ran into Gary at the community mailboxes. Gary was an original homeowner, an older guy who had actually known my grandfather. He was on the first HOA board before it became a viper's nest. "Mark," he said, nodding, his face lined with concern. "Heard you had a run-in with our new supreme leader." I chuckled. "You could say that?" "She seems to think she's in charge of my workshop." Gary's smile faded. "Be careful, son." "I'm not kidding. She's different." The old board, we were just about making sure the pool was clean and the roads were paved. "We understood the live and let live agreement with you. Brenda, she's not like that. She's been at 3 meetings with the HOA's lawyers. She's looking for a fight. She thinks your workshop is an eyesore and a blight on her property values. She's convinced that because the community is named Mitchell's Run, it means she has some kind of authority over the Mitchell. That's insane," I said, the good humor draining out of me. "That's Brenda," he replied, tapping his mail on his leg. "Just watch your back. She's a snake in the grass. A very, very organized snake with a clipboard." Gary's warning was more prescient than I could have imagined. I was naive. I thought I was protected by logic, by law, by history. I had forgotten that for people like Brenda, those things are just obstacles to be bulldozed. The war wasn't coming. It had already begun. The first real shot was fired exactly 1 week later. It didn't come as a laminated note. It didn't come via golf cart. It came via certified mail, a crisp white envelope that required my signature. The return address was that of a high-powered, high-priced law firm I knew the HOA kept on retainer. My hands felt a little cold as I walked back into my kitchen, the letter feeling heavier than it should. I slid it open with a kitchen knife. My heart didn't just sink. It plummeted. It was a formal notice of covenant violation and imposition of fines. "Dear Mr. Mitchell," it began, the politeness feeling more threatening than any curse word. "It has come to the attention of the Mitchell's Run HOA Board of Directors that you are operating an unauthorized commercial enterprise. This activity is in direct violation of Covenant 7.2. No trade, business, or commercial activity shall be conducted." It went on, citing more sections and subsections, a veritable novel of bureaucratic nonsense. But the real punch was at the end. "You are hereby fined $500, 500 hours per day for this ongoing violation. We have documented this activity for the past 20 days. A fine of $10,000 is now due and payable to the Mitchell's Run HOA. Failure to pay within 30 days will result in a lien being placed on your property. Furthermore, you are ordered to cease and desist all commercial operations immediately. $10,000. I had to read the number 3 times. My entire body went numb, then hot. This was an order to shut down my life, my business, my family's legacy, all because of the sound of a sander and the smell of sawdust. This wasn't a warning. It was an execution order. I grabbed my keys, the letter crumpled in my fist. I was going to the next HOA meeting. This was a special session, she had called, according to the community calendar. I was going to stand up, show them my county permits, my business license, the original zoning maps, and I was going to end this farce. The meeting was that evening at the sterile community clubhouse. I walked in and the atmosphere was arctic. It wasn't a homeowners meeting. It was a courtroom. Brenda sat at the head of a long U-shaped table, flanked by two new board members who looked like her brainwashed disciples. The HOA's lawyer, a man in a suit so expensive it looked armored, sat beside her. About 10 other homeowners were scattered in the plastic chairs, looking nervous. Gary was in the back, and he gave me a grim look. "We have a full agenda," Brenda announced, her voice echoing slightly in the bare room. "We will not be taking unscheduled comments. I'm here about this," I said, my voice louder than I intended. I walked to the table and slapped the letter down. The sound was like a gunshot. "This $10,000 fine?" Brenda smiled, a tight, thin-lipped expression of pure victory. "Ah, Mr. Mitchell, we were wondering if you'd received it. You are not on the agenda." "I am now," I said. "This is a joke. You know perfectly well that my property is not part of your HOA. Your covenants have zero jurisdiction over me." "That," the lawyer interjected, his voice smooth and cold, "is a matter of legal interpretation. The Mitchells Run development is a master-planned community. Your property, being geographically within the community's boundaries, is subject to its rules and regulations, even if you are not a dues-paying member. The covenants run with the land, Mr. Mitchell, all land." That's not true," I said, my confidence wavering. "This was a prepared ambush. My family founded this land. My business is legally permitted by the county. It's been operating here for over a decade. It's grandfathered in." "Your county permits are irrelevant," Brenda said, leaning into her microphone. "The HOA covenants are a private contract, and they are far more restrictive than county minimums. Your workshop is a nuisance. It produces noise, it produces chemical smells, and it involves commercial trucks coming and going. It is a clear and present danger to our property values." A man in the front row, one of Brenda's new cronies, spoke up. "She's right. I heard a saw at 10 a.m. on a Saturday. I have a right to quiet enjoyment of my property." I was floored. 10 a.m. on a Saturday? You're complaining about a saw at 10 a.m.? "This is not a debate," Brenda snapped, hitting her gavel. "The board has already reviewed the evidence." "What evidence?" I demanded. She pointed to a thick binder. "Photographs of your truck. Decibel readings taken from your property line. A log of all commercial deliveries. We have been thorough. She had been spying on me for weeks, building a case to destroy me." "This is harassment," I said, my voice low. "This is enforcement," the lawyer corrected. "The board has voted. The fines are valid. The cease and desist order is effective immediately. If you operate your business tomorrow, we will add another $500, and we will file the lien, and we will foreclose on it. Do you understand?" I looked around the room. The other homeowners stared at their laps. Gary looked disgusted, but he was just one man. The new board members nodded along with every word Brenda said. I was alone. I was standing in a room full of people whose water I supplied, whose community name I shared, and I was being railroaded. "You're making a mistake," I said, my hands shaking with adrenaline and rage. "A very, very big mistake." Brenda's smile was sickening. "The only mistake, Mr. Mitchell, was you thinking you were above the rules. Pay the fine. Shut down your shop, or we will shut it down for you. Next item on the agenda?" I walked out of that clubhouse. The cool night air felt like a slap. I had just been legally mugged. My livelihood, my home. Everything was on the line. They weren't just trying to find me. They were trying to evict me from my own life, to take my history and pave it over, replacing it with another patch of HOA-approved beige. I got in my truck and drove. Not home. I drove to the 24-hour diner on the highway, and I sat in a booth with a cup of bitter coffee, the lawyer's words echoing in my head. "A matter of legal interpretation. We will foreclose." My anger began to cool, and what replaced it was something much harder, much colder. It was resolve. Brenda thought this was a fight about covenants and noise. She thought she had all the power. She was about to find out what real power was. She had just declared war on my past. I was about to use my past to end her future. I didn't sleep. I went home and walked straight to my grandfather's old study. It was a room I'd mostly left untouched, a museum of his life. Leather-bound books, geological survey maps, and 4 massive gray, fireproof filing cabinets. If the HOA's lawyer wanted to play a game of legal interpretation and covenants that run with the land, I was going to find the contract that started it all. My grandfather was meticulous. He kept everything. I pulled open the drawer labeled D for development and then M for Mitchell's Run. And there it was. Not just the land sale agreement, but a thick, separate, stapled document. Utility and Water Service Agreement, Mitchell's Run, HOA. I sat at his old oak desk, the one I'd refinished myself, and I started to read. The first 10 pages were dry legal boilerplate. It outlined the scope of the service, providing all potable and irrigation water to the 200 home. Development from the homestead well system. It detailed the easement for the subterranean pipes. Then I got to Section 4, fees and terms. My grandfather, God rest his generous soul, had locked in the rate. In perpetuity, as a gesture of goodwill, he had written, "The grantee HOA shall pay a flat monthly service fee of 1,000 trak." I sighed. It was a gift, one they were now spitting on. I kept reading. Section 7, Grantor's Rights. This was my grandfather's lawyer. This man was a genius. Clause 7A. The grantor, Mitchell Homestead, reserves the right to full and unrestricted enjoyment of their property, free from interference or nuisance from the grantee, HOA. My heart started to pound. Interference or nuisance. Clause 7C. The grantee, HOA, shall not, under any circumstances, engage in any action, legal or otherwise, that could be construed as harassment, bad faith litigation, or a deliberate attempt to cause financial or personal injury to the grantor. Bad faith litigation. Financial injury. A $10,000 fine and a cease and desist order. That wasn't just a bullseye. That was a direct hit. And then I found it. The clause that changed everything. The clause my grandfather's lawyer must have slipped in knowing that one day goodwill might run dry. Clause 9, breach of contract. Should the grantee, HOA, be found in violation of any clause in Section 7 of this agreement, the grantor, Mitchell, reserves the right upon 30 days written notice to declare this agreement in default. Upon such a declaration, two things shall occur immediately. The legacy rate of $1,000 per month shall be rendered null and void. 2, the agreement shall be renegotiated to prevailing market rates for commercial water services, as determined by an independent auditor. Furthermore, per Section 5B, the grantee, HOA, is and shall remain responsible for 100% of all costs associated with the system's maintenance, repair, and state-mandated capital improvements. I stopped. I read it again. And again, a slow, wide grin spread across my face. It felt alien. It was the eureka moment. It was the checkmate moment. Brenda and her lawyers had been so busy reading their book of covenants, they never, ever thought to check the one that gave them water. They thought my workshop was a nuisance. They had no idea what a real nuisance looked like. I picked up the phone. It was 3 a.m. I called my lawyer's emergency line. "Mark, what's wrong? Is it the HOA? Did they do something?" "Oh, yeah," I said, my voice electric. "They did something. And I think I just found the tactical nuke. Read me Section 7C of the water agreement." I read him the clauses. There was a long, stunned silence on the other end of the line. Then a low whistle. "Mark. Oh, Mark, my God, you don't just have leverage. You have a goddamn tactical nuke. Prevailing market rates? Do you have any idea what the market rate is to supply 200 high-end homes, plus a pool and landscaping from a private well?" "I have no idea," I said. "But I'm dying to find out." "I'll make some calls," my lawyer said, his voice now filled with a predatory glee. "Get me a scanned copy of that agreement. We are not just going to get these fines dropped. We are going to own them. Do not talk to them. Do not pay them. Do not do anything until I call you back." I spent the next hour doing research. I called a 24-hour municipal water consultant in a different state, pretending to be a developer. I gave him the specs: 200 homes, average 4-bedroom, plus irrigation for a 5-acre common area and a 50,000-gallon pool. His answer? From a private commercial well? You're not looking at a flat fee. You're looking at a per-gallon rate. You'd be easily charging, I'd say, $40,000 to $60,000 a month minimum. Plus, they'd be responsible for all maintenance and upgrades. That's the dream contract, my friend. You'd have them by the throat. $50,000 a month. Brenda had tried to fine me $10,000. She had just, through her own petty blind arrogance, given me the right to raise her entire community's water bill by 5,000%. The sun was coming up. I made myself a pot of coffee, the first one I'd enjoyed in weeks. The game had changed. Brenda thought she was the queen, with her army of lawyers and bylaws. She didn't realize she was playing chess on my board. And I wasn't just a pawn. I was the one who owned the board, the pieces, and the table they were sitting on. My lawyer called back at 9 a.m. sharp. He was ecstatic. It's ironclad, Mark. It's beautiful. The harassment and financial injury clause is our golden ticket. Their $10,000 fine isn't just a threat. It's our evidence of their breach. They handed us the gun, the bullet, and a signed confession. So, here's the plan. We didn't go nuclear, not yet. We would give them one, and only one, chance to surrender unconditionally. That afternoon, my lawyer drafted a new letter. It was sent via certified mail and hand-delivered by a courier to Brenda, the entire board, and their law firm. This letter was not a plea. It was a demand. Notice of breach of contract, utility and water service agreement. It began by citing the $10,000 fine and the cease and desist order. It then quoted, verbatim, Section 7C and Section 9 of the Water Agreement. Your actions constitute a clear and unmistakable breach of this binding contract. You have engaged in bad faith litigation and a deliberate attempt to cause financial injury to the grantor. Therefore, you have 48 hours from receipt of this letter to meet the following four conditions. Immediately rescind, in full, the $10,000 fine. Immediately rescind, in full, the cease and desist order. Issue a formal, written apology, signed by the entire board, for this campaign of harassment. Draft and file a permanent amendment to the HOA covenants, formally acknowledging the grandfathered status and permanent exemption of the Mitchell homestead and its associated businesses in perpetuity. Failure to meet all four of these conditions will be considered a formal, irreversible default. We will proceed immediately with the remedies outlined in Section 9, namely, the termination of the legacy rate and the renegotiation of your water services to prevailing market rates, estimated at $55,000 per month. I delivered a copy to Brenda myself. She was, as usual, in her golf cart inspecting a neighbor's mailbox. She tore the envelope open, her face impassive. She read it. Her lips tightened. She read it again. Then she did the one thing that sealed her fate. She laughed. A short, sharp, arrogant bark. A water agreement? She scoffed. From 1999? That's hilarious, Mark. You're bluffing. This is a desperate, pathetic stunt. My lawyer will tear this apart before lunch. You're just angry you got caught. Pay the fine, shut down your little wood shop. This changes nothing. I just looked at her. I didn't say a word. I just let her arrogance hang in the air. It's not a bluff, Brenda, I said quietly. The clock is ticking. You have 48 hours to save your community from your own ego. I turned and walked away. The 48 hours passed. 48 hours of deafening, arrogant silence. Brenda didn't call. Her lawyer didn't call. They thought I was the one who was desperate. They thought their covenants were the only law in the land. At the 49th hour, my lawyer sent the second letter. Renotice of default and immediate contract renegotiation. It was delivered by courier to every single member of the HOA board, the law firm, and most importantly, the HOA's treasurer, as you have failed to comply with the terms. The utility and water service agreement is now in default. The legacy rate is void. Effective in 30 days, your new monthly rate for water service will be $55,000. Attached is the invoice for the first month, due in 30 days. We have also attached the formal proposal for the new contract. We look forward to your prompt payment. This time, my phone did not stay silent. It exploded. It wasn't Brenda. It was the treasurer, a man named Ron, who sounded like he was having a full-blown panic attack. Mark? What is this? 55,000? It's a typo, right? This is insane. Our entire monthly budget for everything, landscaping, pool, insurance, everything, is $30,000. You'll bankrupt the entire HOA. You can't do this. I'm not doing it, Ron, I said calmly. Brenda did it. She was given a clear, simple way out. She chose not to take it. The contract is the contract. I'm just following the rules. Something Brenda is very, very passionate about. She said it was a bluff, he stammered. Does this sound like a bluff? I have an open house scheduled with the municipal water company in 2 weeks to discuss them taking over the service at market rate. You can come if you'd like. Oh, and by the way, if you default on the new payment, the contract also says I can just turn the water off entirely. 48 hours notice. I heard him gulp. There's an emergency meeting tonight at the clubhouse. You have to be there. Please, Mark. My God. I walked into the clubhouse that night, and the atmosphere was completely different. It wasn't Arctic. It was a volcano. It was packed. Every homeowner was there, and they weren't nervous. They were furious. Every one of them was holding a copy of my lawyer's letter. Brenda was at the front, but she wasn't smiling. She was pale, flanked by her 2 cronies who looked terrified. The HOA lawyer was whispering frantically in her ear. Ron, the treasurer, stood up, his hands shaking. As you all know, we have received a demand for a new water rate from Mr. Mitchell for $55,000 a month. The room erupted. How? That's $3,300 a year per house. She told us she had him under control. This is extortion. Brenda yelled over the noise, pointing at me. He's trying to extort us. This is illegal. It's not illegal, my lawyer said, stepping forward. I'd brought him with me this time. It's 100% legal. It's called breach of contract. And your president, Ms. Brenda, is the one who breached it. He calmly, clearly laid out the entire story for the homeowners. The $10,000 fine, the cease and desist, the harassment, the 48-hour surrender letter that Brenda had laughed at. When he finished, there was a dead cold silence. Everyone in the room was staring at Brenda, and that's when Gary, the old-timer, stood up in the back. I told you, he said, his voice quiet but carrying across the room. I told you to leave him alone, Brenda. I told you at the first meeting. I told you his family gave us this. They gave us water for pennies. They subsidized your precious property values for 20 years. And you arrogant petty, you tried to destroy that man's life over the sound of a saw. And now you've destroyed us. The dam broke. The homeowners turned on her. It was a feeding frenzy. Resign. You did this. You've ruined us. Brenda tried to bang her gavel. Order. I will have order. You'll have nothing. A woman in the front row screamed. I'm not paying $3,000 a year because you don't like the smell of pine. We vote now. An emergency vote to remove Brenda as president. It was chaos. But it was beautiful chaos. The vote was unanimous. Even her 2 disciples turned on her to save their own skins. Brenda was removed as president, effective immediately. She just sat there, stunned, as Gary was nominated and unanimously voted in as interim president. The room quieted. Gary, now at the head of the table, looked at me. His face was grim but respectful. Mark, son, you've made your point. And you were right, but $55,000 a month. We can't. You'll destroy your neighbors. You'll destroy me! What do you want? This was the moment. I could have been a tyrant. I could have taken my $55,000 a month, but I'm not Brenda. I want what I asked for 48 hours ago, I said, my voice clear. The $10,000 fine is void. The cease and desist is void. A real apology and a permanent ironclad exemption for my business in your bylaws, Gary nodded. Done, of course. And the water. Please, Mark. And the water, I said, is no longer $1,000 a month. That gift is over. Brenda taught me that my goodwill is a liability. But it's also not $55,000. We'll sign a new contract. A fair one. We'll set it at $8,000 a month. It's a 700% increase, but it's still a fraction of the market rate. It's enough to cover my own property taxes, and it's enough to remind you all that this water is not a right. It's an agreement, and I expect you to honor your end of it." The board, and the entire room, sighed in collective relief. Ron, the treasurer, looked like he wanted to kiss me. They voted. It passed unanimously. The $10,000 fine was gone. My business was safe, permanently. I was now making a fair $8,000 a month from the HOA. And Brenda sat in the back, ruined. She had lost her power, her office, and her dignity. She was just another homeowner, and one that had just cost her neighbors a lot of money. I walked out of that clubhouse for the second time. But I wasn't angry. I wasn't shaken. I felt peaceful. I had won, but I had made one fatal error in judgment. I had assumed that humiliating a person like Brenda was the same as defeating her. I was wrong. The war wasn't over. She had just lost a battle. And her new campaign, her next attack, would be far, far worse. Okay, we are at the halfway point, and Brenda has been thoroughly, publicly humiliated. She's been dethroned, and Mark has secured his business and a serious pay raise. But if you know anything about Karens, you know they don't go away quietly. The real chaos is about to begin. If you're enjoying this story, and you want to see Brenda get what's really coming to her, do me a quick favor and hit that like button. It really helps the channel. And if you're new here, and you love stories about homeowners associations and pro-revenge, make sure you subscribe to Keys and Chaos. You won't want to miss the fallout from this. For about a month, there was peace. Real, actual peace. The $8,000 payment cleared. The HOA board, led by Gary, sent me a formal, framed apology and the new bylaw amendment. My workshop was humming. I was working on a beautiful set of cherry wood cabinets, the cha-chunk of the chisel my only companion. I didn't see Brenda. Her white SUV was gone, her house quiet. Rumor was she'd gone to visit family to recover from the stress. I should have known it was a retreat, not a surrender. She returned on a Tuesday. I didn't see her. I just saw the results of her. A new set of official vehicles pulled up my driveway. Not an HOA golf cart. These were county-issued trucks. White, with the official seal of the county health department on the side. And behind them, a truck from the State Environmental Protection Agency. My blood ran ice cold. This was a different league. This wasn't bylaws. This was the law. A man and a woman, both in official windbreakers and holding serious-looking clipboards, knocked on my workshop door. "Mr. Mark Mitchell," the woman from the EPA asked. "Yes? Can I help you?" "We've received a highly detailed, anonymous complaint," the man from the health department said, "alleging the improper disposal of industrial chemicals and contaminants on this property." The woman continued, "The complaint alleges you are dumping solvents, stains, and lacquers, and that these chemicals may be leaching into the groundwater. Specifically," she looked down at her file, "the aquifer that services the Mitchells-run community." I was speechless. This wasn't just a fine. This was an accusation that could land me in prison. That could shut me down forever. This was a scorched earth attack. This was Brenda's revenge. "That is an absolute insane lie," I said, my voice shaking. "I'm a professional. I have a disposal manifest. All my chemicals are in a fireproof cabinet. My waste is picked up by a certified disposal company. Here!" I ran to my office and pulled out my binders, my logs, my MSDS, material safety data sheets, my disposal contracts. The inspectors were surprised. "Well, this is immaculate," the man said, looking through my logs. "Honestly, Mr. Mitchell, your shop is cleaner than most restaurants we inspect. This is one of the most professional small business setups I've ever seen. But," the EPA woman said, her face grim, "protocol is protocol. The complaint was specific. We have to test. We have to test your soil. We have to test your well and, I'm afraid, we have to red tag your workshop. You are shut down pending our investigation." "Shut down? For how long?" "Lab results take a week, maybe 2. Until we can officially clear your water and soil, you cannot operate." I'm sorry, 2 weeks. 2 weeks of zero income. 2 weeks of canceled orders. This would cost me more than the $10,000 fine. Brenda knew exactly what she was doing. She hadn't just tried to find me. She had called in an airstrike. For the next 4 hours, they were all over my property. They took soil samples from behind my workshop. They took samples from the lawn. They took samples from the wellhead itself. They were polite, professional, but it felt like a violation. I saw Brenda watching from her front window 2 streets over, a pair of binoculars in her hand. I was furious. I was losing thousands of dollars a day. My reputation with my clients was on the line, all because of a lie. A week later, the inspectors returned. "Well, Mr. Mitchell," the EPA woman said, and she was actually smiling. "The lab results are in. We wanted to deliver them in person." My heart was in my throat. "Your soil is perfect. Cleaner than the surrounding developments, actually. Probably because you don't use the metric ton of pesticides they do. And your water? Mr. Mitchell, the water from your well is some of the purest we have ever tested in this state. It's pristine." I almost collapsed in relief. "So the complaint is bogus. You can clear me? I can get back to work? We're taking the red tag off your door right now," the health inspector said. "And we're filing this as a malicious false complaint. If we find out who filed it, they could be facing serious penalties." "I think I know who it was," I said grimly. "But," the EPA woman said, and my heart sank again. "There is one thing." "What?" "Your system. The well itself is perfect, but the infrastructure, the pumps, the pressure tanks, the filtration system, it's all 20 years old. It's perfectly fine grandfathered for a single-family home." "But," I prompted, "but since your system is commercially servicing 200 other homes, it falls under new state regulations. The ones passed 2 years ago, we didn't even know this system existed until the complaint. But now that we do, we have to enforce it. The system, it needs to be upgraded to modern commercial-grade standards to guarantee its safety for that many people." "An upgrade?" I said, my voice small. How much are we talking about?" The inspector winced. "For a system of this size? To bring it up to 2024 commercial code, you'll need new digital pumps, a new filtration array, new pressure tanks. Ballpark? You're probably looking at $500,000, $500,000. I stopped breathing. The inspector continued, "You'll have 12 months to comply. We'll issue the official order of compliance next week." I'm really sorry, son. Your shop is clean, but this just is what the law says." They left. I stood in my workshop, the all clear in my hand, but it felt like a death sentence. Brenda had won. She'd lost the battle, but she had just won the war. Her anonymous tip had failed to shut me down for pollution, but it had succeeded in triggering an inspection that would bankrupt me. There was no way I had $500,000. I couldn't get a loan for that. I would have to sell the land. I would have to sell the homestead. I would have to give up everything. Brenda's petty, spiteful revenge had just succeeded beyond her wildest dreams. I sat on my workbench, the smell of cherry wood in the air, and for the first time, I felt defeated. I was in a black fog for 2 days. I couldn't work. I just sat. I looked at the letter from the EPA. Order of compliance. Mandated capital improvement. Failure to comply will result in decommissioning of the well. Decommissioning. That meant I'd have to turn off the water to the entire HOA. They'd have to spend millions to connect to the municipal line. It was a disaster for everyone. Brenda's victory was a mutual destruction pact. I called my lawyer. I sounded as defeated as I felt. She won, man. She finally won. I'm ruined. $500,000 I have to sell. Whoa, slow down, Mark, my lawyer said, his voice sharp. Don't do anything. Don't sell. Don't panic. Pull out the new water agreement. The one you just signed a month ago. What's the point? I muttered. But I walked to the study and pulled it from the file. Read me Section 5B, he said. The one we copied directly from your grandfather's original contract. The one we made damn sure was in the new one. My hands were shaking. I found the section. I read it aloud, my voice flat. The grantee, HOA, is, and shall remain responsible for 100% of all costs associated with the system's maintenance, repair, and I stopped. I read the next words, and state-mandated capital improvement costs. I read it again and again. The fog in my head didn't just lift. It was blasted away by a sunrise, a long, long silence. Mark, you still there? My lawyer asked. "Oh my God," I whispered. "Oh my God! Oh my God is right!" He shouted through the phone. "Mark, you magnificent bastard, you've done it again! She didn't just shoot herself in the foot. She didn't just shoot the HOA in the chest. She just personally handed you $500,000. The final move. The last move." I spent the next 3 days not in a fog of despair, but in a flurry of activity. I called 3 different state-certified commercial well installation companies. I got 3 official itemized quotes for the state-mandated upgrade. The lowest, most competitive bid was for $485,000. I drafted one last letter. My lawyer reviewed it. It was a work of art, Dear Gary, and the Mitchell's Run Board of Directors. As you are aware, a recent anonymous complaint was filed with the EPA and Health Department regarding my property. While I am happy to report that my workshop and property were found to be immaculate and in perfect compliance, the inspection did trigger a mandatory review of our shared water system. Attached, please find the State Order of Compliance, which mandates a full, commercial-grade upgrade to the well system within 12 months. As per Section 5B of our binding water service agreement, the HOA is responsible for 100% of all state-mandated capital improvement costs. Also attached are the 3 competitive bids for the work. The lowest bid is for $485,000. Please let me know how you would like to arrange payment, so we can begin this state-mandated work immediately. I look forward to our continued positive relationship. I sent this letter via courier to the entire board, and I also sent a full copy of the letter, the EPA compliance order, and the EPA's all-clear report, which mentioned the malicious false complaint, to every single homeowner in Mitchell's Run. This time, the explosion was not a volcano. It was nuclear. The emergency meeting that night was legendary. I attended, of course. I sat in the back, calm as a monk. The homeowners were not calm. They were holding my packet of information. They were apoplectic. "We have to pay $500,000. Because of her!" Someone screamed before Gary even banged the gavel. Brenda was there. She must have thought this was her final victory lap. She must have thought this was the meeting where I announced I was selling. She looked confused. Gary, his face as white as a sheet, stood up. He held my letter. "It's true," he said, his voice a hollow echo. "The contract is clear. Her complaint triggered this. The state has ordered it. And the contract says we have to pay for it." He looked at the crowd. "This will require an immediate one-time special assessment of $2,425 per home." The room was silent. A dead, horrifying $485,000 silence. Every single eye in that room, over 200 people, slowly turned. Not to me, not to Gary. They all turned to Brenda. She stood up, sputtering. It's a safety issue. His system was old. I did us a favor. Shut up, Brenda," Gary said. His voice wasn't angry. It was just dead. "Just shut up. We have all read the EPA report. Immaculate. Pristine. Malicious, false complaint. Your lie. Your petty, childish, pathetic revenge because you lost your plastic throne has just cost every single one of your neighbors $2,500. You could hear a pin drop." Brenda's face went from red to white to a mottled gray. She looked around. But she wasn't looking at neighbors. She was looking at a 200-person lynch mob. No one said a word. They just stared. The combined silent hatred in that room was so thick, I could almost taste it. She didn't run. She just sort of deflated. She grabbed her purse, her hands shaking, and she walked out of the clubhouse. No one watched her go. They were all too busy staring at the $2,125 Brenda tax on the agenda. The board voted. They had no choice. The special assessment was approved. 2 weeks later, a for sale sign went up on Brenda's lawn. It was sold in less than a month. I heard she lost money on it. She just vanished. A month after that, the construction crews arrived. For 3 weeks they worked. And I, from my workshop, watched them install a brand-new, gleaming $485,000 state-of-the-art commercial well system on my property, all paid for in full by the HOA. And that, folks, is how one Karen's obsession with control ended up costing her and her entire neighborhood $500,000, all while getting me a brand new top-of-the-line water system for free. I still run my workshop. The sounds of the sander and the planer are still the only sounds you hear. I'm still making a fair $8,000 a month for the water. And Gary and I, we share a beer on my porch every now and then. Sometimes the chaos you create comes back to bite you. Hard. Brenda wanted to shut down my industrial operation. Instead, she just funded its single biggest capital improvement. And that, my friends, is what I call poetic justice. What did you think of Brenda's final self-destructive move? Can you believe the audacity? Let me know in the comments what you would have done with that $500,000 bill. And if you made it this far, you are an absolute legend. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. Please, if you haven't already, destroy that like button, subscribe to Keys and Chaos, and ring that bell so you never miss another story of sweet, chaotic justice. Thanks for watching.